Welcome to Real Health with me, Karl Henry. Folks, have you ever said to yourself, I wish I had started earlier? Studying, exercising, socialising, changing. Well, what can we do today to improve tomorrow? In the new book, The Things Your Future Self Will Thank You For, author, family doctor with an expertise in burnout prevention and lifestyle medicine, and the host of the podcast In the Doctor's Chair, Dr Mark Rowe, looks at how small changes can make lasting results. Mark, finally, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Karl.
We're delighted to have you in, and congratulations on your book.
Yes.
It's fabulous.
Yeah, it's my fourth book. I'm really proud of it.
Is it?
And, you know, as I was saying to a patient just yesterday, there's no point in having the information unless you share it. Mm-hmm. And I really believe if you learn something, teach it to somebody else, share it. That's how we make a better world, a healthier world. It's one conversation at a time. So I'm really grateful for everything I've been given in my life, but I'm really grateful for having been able to write these books and share them with the world.
And is that your driver behind putting a book together? There's a bit of work in it, a lot of work in it.
There's a lot of work. Yeah. It took me about 2 years to write this book, and I didn't just take 2 years off to write the book.
That'd be the dream, wouldn't it?
I was running a busy practice, and I like to do lots of things anyway at the same time. But I mean, I think it's all about purpose.
Yep.
And fulfillment, and you know, to get the finished version of the book just before Christmas, it was a real sense of joy for me. Mm-hmm. And you know, knowing that it can support other people, for me, service is the rent we pay for the privilege of living on this earth. We all make a living with what we get, and we make a life with what we give to others. And I really believe in that. That's a value for me.
Okay.
The value of service, the value of generosity, the value of giving, the value of trying to make a difference. I suppose that's why I became a doctor. Since I was like 7 years of age.
Really?
I always wanted to do medicine. I was probably my mum's dad. He was a GP. Okay. He was from Cork, and he'd set up a practice in a very poor part of Glasgow. And he died years before I was born, but he was always my hero in a sort of an abstract sort of way. And yeah, I always wanted to be a family doctor, and it's such a privilege. You get to hear the A to Z. You know, real life is often stranger than fiction.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
And it's been I've been a GP now. I was saying to you before we started for 30 years, and the time has flown, and it's been such a trip, really, ups and downs. But I've really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping there'll be 30 more doing maybe other things.
And it's something you can't buy, that really, isn't it? It's lived experience.
Oh yes, the university.
No course will teach you that.
No course will teach you that. No qualifications on the wall will teach you that. And I've always said, you know, I've learned more from many of the people I've met over the years than any of the lectures I ever went to in medical school or GP training. People can be very wise and very insightful if you take the time to listen to them. And if you reflect from their experiences and reflect from your own, I mean, that's really the seeds of wisdom. It's turning knowledge and turning life lessons and turning experience into wisdom. And if we all become a little bit wiser, Karl, we can make little better health choices. We can be kinder to ourselves and to others. We can value our relationships that little bit more. We can value our health, our real health, that little bit more. And we can really start to take those little steps towards that future version of ourselves. And really that's the essence of our conversation, I suppose, the things your future self will thank you for. Your future is emerging in this conversation. For anyone listening to this podcast, your future is starting. It's not some abstract idea 30, 40 years into the future. It's emergent in every breath and every step.
And I think that's a good point, isn't it? That sometimes we think about the future as it's going to happen, and you know, it's 10 or 20 years down the line. And when it comes to health, though, I think we especially do that, don't we? That, like, you know, that, okay, I'm like, you know, I have a cardiovascular risk factor in my family, I'm going to have a heart attack. Well, actually, there are things you can do between now and then to help you prevent that or help you reduce the risk factors of it. There are small steps and changes you can make now and over the course of the next 10, 15, 20 years that will, you know, improve your aging quality and the quality of life as you get older.
Well, there's so much to unpack in that statement. Probably 90% of all cases of heart disease can be prevented. Perhaps 80% of all cases of type 2 diabetes can be prevented. Many chronic health conditions can be prevented. And, probably at max 25% of our health expression, as it were, comes from our genes. In other words, the vast majority comes from our lifestyle habits. And there's so much we can do each and every day, not just to improve our longer term health span, in other words, the number of years we can stay healthy for, but actually what's more important is how Karl feels today, how Mark feels today, the quality of your everyday lived experience, your subjective well-being. Because there's no point in saying, well, I'm slogging away on the treadmill and I'm on the plant-based diet and because I know in 20 years' time I'm not going to have heart disease, and you're as miserable as hell. That's no good. So it's about enjoying the moment, making the most of the gift of life today while we have it, and actively appreciating that as an idea and appreciating the people you have around you.
And of course, that idea of habits and better habits and leveraging the power of habits, it's one of the cornerstones of what you write about.
Yeah. I mean, we make our habits and then our habits make us. So a lot of what we do every day, I think there was a study in Duke University that said at least 40% of our everyday actions are actually habits. And that's a very old way in which the brain conserved energy. The brain is only about 2% of the body's size, consumes at least 20% of the body's energy. As you know, it's very energy intensive. So for complex repetitive movements, you want to quickly jump into the river and run away from the line, or you want to climb up the tree. You don't want to have to think your way into it. You want to be able to do these behaviors automatically. So that employed an area of the brain called the basal ganglia. And if you can automate a behavior pattern, it means you can use the basal ganglia in the brain and you don't have to have the willpower, because willpower is always in limited supply. The idea of getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth, you don't have to think, will I brush my teeth today or won't I? You just do it automatically. You have your shower, you do all your bits and pieces. So the more of these behaviors we can nudge ourselves positively into turning into habits, the easier it is to keep doing them when motivation is low and willpower is in the floor. And, motivation probably only counts for about 15% of any behavior change. Changing habits is hard, and it's oversold as something you can do that quickly. You can't. It takes time.
It takes time, and
it can take a lifetime, and that's okay.
It takes the right reason, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Start with why.
The why, the strong enough why to want to make. Do I want to live better as a better health span as I get older?
Yeah.
Do I want to be around for my children?
Yeah.
The right why is the.
But even and as I say, why? Maybe because you want more energy. Maybe you're 50 years of age listening to this podcast, and you're thinking, when I'm 85 or 90 years of age, I want to go through an airport. I want to carry my own bags, and I want to be able to stack them overhead and go for my sun holiday. Well, actually, if I want to be able to do that, and that's a great aspiration, we need a strong frame to carry us around. That's why taking up the habit of strength training could be really, really good for us, why it could be invaluable in so many ways. And you'll release all these myokines, which will cross the blood-brain barrier and make you feel more positive and boost your insulin metabolism and do all sorts of amazingly positive things. But actually, the why is, I want to be able to travel and stay independent, or even to be independent at home. It's fantastic. So there's always a why. So if we dig down into what is our real why.
I finished, we haven't had her on the podcast yet. I know we absolutely are chasing her, is Mel Robbins. I finished her new book recently, and she's a great little trick. And it's full credit to her. It's the 5 whys. You ask yourself why 5 times. And by the 5th one, you've kind of got to the real reason. So why do you want to make a change? Because, well, why? Because, why? And then you keep going and you'll eventually get there.
Like the layers of an onion. It is.
Absolutely that. It's very simple, but very clever.
Viktor Frankl, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He once wrote that the man who knows his why can endure anyhow. And why, you see, connects with purpose, Karl. It's a very deep idea. You're getting into values. You're getting into purpose. You're getting back into the heart of the onion, back into the essence of who you really are. And that's a very powerful driver for well-being, for personal growth, for fulfillment, for relationships, for life satisfaction. And I would encourage anybody listening, take the time to really discover your why. And why do you do what you do? It's a great question to ask yourself. I think life is less about reading books and knowing all the answers. Ask yourself the right questions and you'll come up with your own answers.
I want to chat through some of the things in the book that you talk about. One, in terms of the chapter on becoming the CEO of your own health, you talk about wearable technology and how we can use that to improve our health. Let's dabble into that for a minute.
Well, the idea of being a CEO of your own health, I think, is a really lovely idea. And it's this idea of moving away from being simply a passive consumer of healthcare. Now, don't get me wrong, medication can be life-saving. I mean, I'm a doctor, I'm a scientist. Everything I talk about is science-based. You know, you need strong antibiotics for your tonsillitis or your meningitis and so on, your pneumonia. But it's not enough on its own. And we're in a world now, you know, since the 1950s where there is more and more medication being prescribed and many people are experiencing polypharmacy. So this idea of the pill for every ill, I'm very much against this idea. And I think we can move away from that towards what I term becoming a more active participant in our own well-being, taking ownership of our own health and well-being journey. In other words, becoming the CEO of your own health. Knowledge is power, so that's the starting point. Radical acceptance of where you are today becomes the starting point to step forward. Knowing your numbers, many of the important numbers when it comes to our health are under the bonnet, as it were, whether it's your blood pressure. You know, maybe 1 in every 4 people aged over 40 or 45 has high blood pressure. And
is it that high?
It's that high.
Okay.
It could be as high as 2/3 of people in Ireland aged over 50. It's massive.
Wow.
At least half of people with high blood pressure in Ireland don't even know. Half of them don't get it treated and half of them don't get it properly controlled. That's 1 in 8. That's shocking. And that can literally be a time bomb going off in terms of risk of stroke, heart attack and vascular dementia when you're older.
It's about, so, you know, the CEO idea and using tech to do that, it's about knowing as much about your health as you can.
Yes.
From a blood pressure to resting heart rate to body fat mass, muscle mass level, all of
Yeah, and at a very basic level, knowing your risk factors, knowing your family history, knowing your blood pressure, knowing your cholesterol, knowing your 90-day sugar test. Having a proper knowing your own body. Let's get back to basics here. Knowing how your body works, and if there's something that's not working, to get it checked out. And don't stick your head in the sand, as many men continue to do, unfortunately, because we believe we're bulletproof. We believe we're invincible. Yeah. We believe that man up and talk about how we feel is potentially showing an element of weakness. We don't want to do that. So we will either stick our head in the sand or we'll ignore important health issues for maybe years. It's incredible. Let's
make people feel a bit better. As I sip my tea, listeners, I have a bit of a tickle in my throat. I'm trying desperately not to cough, so I have a cup of tea here beside me. In the book, you chat about coffee and tea drinking.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I mean, I'm not one of these sort of finger-wagging doctors wanting to scare people at all. One of the main reasons I wrote the book and that I talk about positive health, I like to encourage and support and empower people to make positive changes. But we just got onto that about numbers and that, you know.
Oh, I'm segueing with my cup of tea, right? That's where I'm going with that. And we are a nation who drinks a lot of tea and a lot of coffee.
Absolutely.
There are health benefits to that.
There are incredible health benefits to coffee and tea. I'm a coffeeholic. I love good coffee. Yeah. I mean, when I was in medical school in the 1980s, it was just chicory, Maxwell House with chicory. It did the job, but it was very functional. Now we have, you know, beans and all sorts of organic brews.
I don't drink. I can't drink it. I don't. The smell of it sends me a bit too. I just don't like the smell of it. I love the smell of it, but I can't. I have an aversion to it, weirdly enough. But tea, I do drink a huge amount. So what's tea doing for me that makes it?
Well, it's full of polyphenol antioxidants. It's full of health boosting phytochemicals. So it's really, really good for your health. But coffee, you know, it comes from the coffee bean, and of course all kinds of beans are full of antioxidants, polyphenols. Coffee is also rich in vitamin B and magnesium. I think there's over 100 health boosting chemicals in coffee. The interesting research on coffee comes from a study in the New England Journal of Medicine, which showed it can significantly reduce chronic health conditions. The Nurses' Health Study, looking at thousands and thousands of nurses, found a significant reduction in stroke. And other research has shown a significant reduction in type 2 diabetes. And a big meta-analysis showed that those that drank the most coffee had over a 30% reduction in depression compared to those that drank the least. Now, there seems to be a sweet spot. There was a brilliant piece of research from McMaster's University in collaboration with University College Galway that showed that people that drank more than 4 cups of coffee a day increased their risk of stroke. So it seems as if up to 4 cups a day are generally health enhancing, with the usual caveat that if you're getting palpitations from drinking coffee or you're getting unduly anxious, not to.
And of course, not too late in the day.
Not too late. Yeah. Coffee has such a long half-life, at least 6 hours with caffeine. Ideally, before lunch is the best. In fact, recent research has shown that if you drink coffee later in the evening, it significantly wipes out your melatonin, which has a negative impact on your sleep cycle and your 24-hour circadian rhythm. The other interesting thing about coffee, Karl, is that if you can wait 60 to 90 minutes after waking up in the morning before you take your first coffee, that's even better, because first thing in the morning, your cortisol levels, they're the stress hormones, they're often at their highest. Whereas adenosine, which is a chemical that sort of causes sleepiness, is lower. So if you wait till the adenosine levels rise and the cortisol levels drop, caffeine blocks adenosine receptors. So now if you drink your coffee 60 to 90 minutes after waking up, you'll feel even more alert, more attentive, more on the ball, as it were.
4 cups of coffee before 12 o'clock, you'd be rocking for the day. Sure. Chat to me around the emotional well-being content that you say cooperation over competition is really good. What do you mean by that?
Well, I believe we're all better together. And, you know, I think one of the real downsides of modern life is that there's been a huge rise in individualism to our downfall, I think, in the Western world. And that's triggering social isolation, disconnection, a huge increase in loneliness. I mean, you'll have seen this, particularly since the pandemic. And a lot of negative comparison driven through social media as well.
Despair.
Negative comparison and the pursuit of perfectionism. And, you know, that can really cause so much unhappiness and lack of fulfillment. So it's looking at how can we be a better neighbour? How can we be a better brother or sister? How can we be a better member of our organisation at work? How can we contribute more? How can we be kinder? How can we reach out to people more? How can we actively appreciate those people around us? In a world where so many people are getting criticism and negative feedback, how can we get on the front foot and say, what can I do today to appreciate somebody else? I have a little mnemonic called GLAD, G-L-A-D, little morning ritual. G, what am I grateful for today? 3 things, big things, little things, incidental things. Because when you express gratitude, you impress it in your heart and in your mind, and it's a wonderful way to boost well-being and dampen down feelings of anxiety. L, what am I going to learn today? In this world, never stop learning. A, who can I appreciate? Might be the person you buy your coffee from. People are crying out for a little bit of appreciation, a bit of validation. And D, how am I dedicating my energy and my time today? So that's you becoming an active participant in your own well-being. That's you getting on the front foot. There's so much going on in this world we can't control. Epictetus, 2,000 years ago, one of the greatest ever Stoic philosophers, he wrote a book about all the things we can't control, and there was one page about the things you can. Your own attitude, your own ability to choose how to respond in any given situation. And it's very empowering to take those small little steps. And it comes back to you in so many ways. I mean, it's impossible to spread kindness without feeling that ripple effect coming back.
Yeah. You let somebody go in front of you in traffic or whatever, and it just makes you feel good.
And for me, Karl, where all this has come from my own lived experience down in the weeds in general practice for 30 years, seeing so many people experiencing stress, toxic stress, burnout, anxiety, and people need a sense of hope and direction. And need to understand that it starts with being kinder to yourself, and as part of that, appreciating what's going well in your life. It's easy to focus on the problems. Some people have terrible problems, by the way. Some people have awful challenges.
And there's something in that too. I call it the EastEnders or Coronation Street theory, in terms of people almost revel in the challenges, don't, in the doom and gloomy stuff. It's kind of nearly easier to go into that, and so, as opposed to doing your glad analogy of saying, okay, what am I grateful for?
Every day you wake up, you're hardwired for fear detection and survival, because that's how your brain is made. You've got an amygdala in there, a red button that's always sensing danger and sensing trouble. Happiness is always an optional extra for the brain that's driven by its need to survive, its need to find food, its need to stay alive, as it were. And that always trumps positivity. In fact, if you get negative feedback, I'm just asking you to think right now about the last time you got really negative feedback. I bet you could recall it.
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah, it's hardwired, it's in there to be recalled at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody started telling you, what a great job you're doing as an advocate for positive health, running this podcast, all the things you're doing to promote a healthier lifestyle, your brain isn't even going to remember that unless I speak to you for at least 12 seconds. Isn't that incredible? Because it won't be considered worthy enough to remember. So that the default option in our brain is always the negative, because that's what's kept us alive. And that's okay, by the way. There's nothing wrong with negative emotion. There can be righteous anger. Sometimes it's normal to feel anxious before you're speaking or before an event or before something. That's normal.
There's levels of it.
Levels of it, exactly. So it's about building the ratio.
When we bring people in who are passionate and expert driven, we always ask them the same. It's a horrible question. We always ask it. Key takeaways for our listeners that you would like to give them from our conversation.
Let me give you 3. Firstly, I would say we're constantly changing. We're changing since you started listening to this podcast. Change is constant, but change starts on the inside. And I think change starts by radical acceptance of who you are today. As a beautiful, unique, wonderful human being, with all your frailties, with all your imperfections, accepting yourself for who you are is really understanding that you are enough. You don't need to change. And that actually opens the door to making positive change. That's the first thing. The second thing I'd say is that when it comes to your health and well-being, it is a priceless asset, and every element is interconnected. Your physical health connects with your mental health, it connects with your emotional health, it connects with your relationships, it connects with the environments you spend your time in. And if you improve one element, for example, if you choose to build a habit of optimism, you will reduce your risk of heart disease. If you choose to slow your breathing, you can feel more calm and lower your stress. So there's so many ways in which these elements are interconnected. And thirdly, I would say, never stop starting. Never stop learning. Never stop growing. The past is gone. You can learn from it. You can grow from it. You can evolve from it. But your future is yet to be determined. Nobody has the right to say where you can go. Simply start. And those small steps to well-being can make such a compound difference in your life. Your future self starts today. Make it a good one.
Sold to all our listeners. Dr. Mark Rowe, thank you so much for joining us. Your new book, Things Your Future Self Will Thank You For, is out in bookstores. And in the Doctor's Chair, your podcast will be online this year as well at some stage, I'm sure. If people want to find you on the likes of Instagram.
Yeah, my website is drmarkrowe.com and the hashtag @drmarkrowe.
Fantastic, Mark. Thank you so much. Folks, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of Real Health with me, Karl Henry. As ever, you know where we are at Karl Henry PT on Instagram, realhealth.independent.ie, and on the Irish Independent website. Go have a wonderful week. Take some of the tips and tools and content we've chatted about over the course of today's episode. Put them into action, and we'll see you next week for more Real Health. Slán go fóill.